Does Matt Stafford count as a really good NFL QB?
Actually, he has like a lot in common with someone that you like a lot. If he were to have a O-line that could keep him upright a little bit more often.
And when you say someone I like, you mean the quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers, number 7, Ben Roethlisberger.
Yeah.
All right, that seems very like a
also,
very.
I guess you have to add Matthew Stafford at what, 9? He's 9, I guess.
Yeah, but that seems like a very aggressive comparison to make.
Is it?
A guy who's been to 3 Super Bowls and won 2 of them? Yeah, I think that's.
Yeah, but you have to remember he has to have the entire team around him, right?
I've heard about. Don't give me the business about it's like a team sport.
And also not like a historically horrible defense, because that would be the Lions last year.
All right, but how about they win a playoff game? And we're talking about a guy who's been to 3 Super Bowls versus a guy who's never won a postseason game.
Okay, but if you were to put Matthew Stafford, if you were to put him on the Steelers team or past teams, I think he could perform pretty well. Just something to know, like rule of thumb off the cuff. About 87% of snaps all quarterbacks take in the pocket. Now, you get guys like Matthew Stafford and like Ben Roethlisberger who take a lot more snaps out and don't stay in the pocket. But if you look at if you kind of like try to distill it down so you can compare more apples to apples, 87% in the pocket, and you go third down, it goes up to about 90% because that's a passing down, want to keep it in the pocket, whatever. And their completion percentage on average past, looked at about 10 years worth of data, 65% when you're passing in the pocket. That goes down on third down to 56%, something like that. However, Matthew Stafford, only 85% of passes in the pocket, 67% completion percentage. So he's taking fewer passes, more accurate, and outside of the pocket, he's actually gone up to from about 30%, which is not very great, to about 47% in the past 2 years. So he's getting better inside the pocket and outside.
Are they the Lions? What percentage of that? I mean, I don't expect you to have a hard and fast number on this. Are they doing design rollouts to play to that strength, or is it just broken down plays?
But I think even more than that, and you've watched more Lions games than me probably, but every time I watch Matt Stafford, I feel like he often will leave the pocket when he doesn't necessarily need to. And then when he does leave the pocket, he tries to make a throw which is almost impossible off his back foot, sidearming it, where he actually has time to set up and make a proper throw, but his arm strength in the past, definitely during his college career and at points during his NFL career, has allowed him to get by, and so he just relies on just his arm when he actually doesn't need to make some kind of one-legged sidearm throw that is incomplete. That's where it feels like his coaching has let him down at times.
Well, I can't speak to that. I don't know what he's supposed to be doing. But when you don't have a running back that you can rely on, like when Lev Bell isn't in your backfield, and when you're getting a stuff percentage that's almost double the league average, so stuff percentage is any time a running back or quarterback who's on their feet gets, and it's not a sack, you have to be running like outside the pocket. So when the quarterback then turns into a running back, it counts as a stuff added behind the line of scrimmage. Lions' stuff percentage is about double the league average. So if the league average is around 10, Lions more like 18. So you're getting part of that is adapting to the fact that he doesn't have necessarily reliable running back to help him in that situation. Sure. So it's very hard. Like it's a little chicken and a little egg in that. So that's why I tried to narrow it down to something that's more apples to apples. So third down in the pocket, running down or passing down. I can't speak today. That's my biggest problem. So actually both he and Ben Roethlisberger took 121 pass attempts in the pocket last season, and Matthew Stafford completed 77 and Ben only 73. Just as when he doesn't have any.
Well, if you're making that comp to 2016, I think Matt Stafford for a long stretch of the season and fell off towards the end, but was a legit MVP candidate, kept pulling out. I like those guys. I've said it a million times. I like the QBs. I will always skew towards the gunslinger, the moxie guy. Like the guy. When's Matt Stafford at his best? In the clutch. What more do you want from a QB?
And also, I'd like to point out, Stafford got sacked 13 times on third down and Ben only 6 times. So that kind of gives you a little bit of a contextualization of the stuff percentage and the sack percentage there. And one more thing, your deep ball, what you're talking about with the gunslingers, they both had about a 40% completion percentage on deep passes, so passes 21 plus, which is I know that's going to sound not so good because you think, 60, 70% is where you think, but deep passes you're not going to complete deep passes as often. So 40% is pretty good.
For sure.
It's very good. And Matthew Stafford actually only had 1 interception on passes of this distance, none in 2015. So 1 in 2016 and none in 2015. Ben had 3 last year and 6 in 2015.
I agree with you about the offensive line. The one thing I would say, and I've is Roethlisberger played a good percentage of his career behind a not mediocre but atrocious offensive line, and in fact won a Super Bowl behind it.
Well, but I mean,
Super Bowl 43, that was a bum offensive line, and they won the Super Bowl.
It's hard to compare. Like that's why I kind of narrowed it to years they were both like playing, and then like Matthew Stafford's like they came out in a different year. Like there's a few things there's really hard to get it apples to apples. But the point is it's very hard to me Matthew Stafford's a top 10 quarterback.